As a kid, I used to chomp on a big handful of Red Hots, those really spicy, cinnamony hot candies, like little M&Ms but smaller, were really, really addictive, but really hot. They would kind of damage the inside of my mouth. But I was obsessed with the heat of those little candies, also with Big Red chewing gum as well. But as I got older, I kind of got tired of that heat because it would kind of damage the inside of my mouth for a bit until it kind of heals itself. Anyway, I like that spiciness in those candies. Like I like them in fragrances as well. So today I've got some Red Hot cinnamon spicy fragrances for you that, in case you haven't checked out yet, you should definitely check out. So if you like the idea of cinnamon fragrances that are red hot, warm, and spicy, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about red hot, spicy, cinnamony fragrances. Are you a fan of these kind of fragrances? The reason I'm putting together this video now is it's also kind of getting cold out there, and I like these warm, spicy fragrances, and I'm a fan of cinnamon. I usually sprinkle cinnamon on top of my cappuccinos. Really like that flavor, and kind of healthy for you too. Not the candies though. But we're going to talk about the cinnamon spicy fragrances. I've got really great fragrances here for you, and if you like this style, you're going to totally want to check these fragrances out. I've got a brand spanking new one here from Plume Impression. If you don't know this brand, I did a video recently with Joe on the brand, but this is a brand spanking new fragrance from the house. It's called Royal Bourbon, this one right here. You're going to notice in this video there's some tobacco fragrances and also boozy fragrances as well, and I feel like the cinnamon note really does complement these kind of notes perfectly. And this Royal Bourbon has both boozy notes of rum and also tobacco, and then loads and loads of cinnamon. So when you wear this fragrance, you get that Red Hots kind of a feel. Remember the Red Hots candies, or even that big red gum that I used to have when I was younger. But this is lots of cinnamon with rum. There's ginger, there's tobacco, caramel, vanilla, licorice, pepper, amber, cedar, and leather. It does kind of dry down to be more on the leather amber woody side, but it's very gourmand, spicy, warmth, boozy, and tobacco-ish. Really great offering. I think if I was to rank the list like we did with Joe some time ago, like a month and a half ago, this would be either at number 1 or number 2. It's really great from this house, and I like these kind of warm, spicy fragrances. So this is Royal Bourbon from the house of Plume Impression. But moving on to the house of MANCERA. MANCERA, it's Tonka Cola, this one right here. Man, this is a really, really cinnamony fragrance. Really, really warm and spicy. If you like cinnamon, you've got to check this one out. But it has loads of Tonka as well, Tonka beans. There's loads of Tonka beans in here. And then you do have that kind of fizzy cola-esque vibe. This kind of imagine maybe drinking cinnamon cola with cherries in there as well, you know? There's a nuttiness. It's all kind of a very unique concoction of these kind of gourmandish notes to create a very warm, spicy fragrance. Really focusing on that cinnamon. It's very hot and spicy and really delicious to wear. It's become one of my favorites from this house, and I like what they've done with it. Is it a cherry fragrance? You've got it. Is it a fizzy cola fragrance? You've got that. Is it Tonka beans? You've got that too. And of course, as I said, loads and loads of cinnamon. But in addition to these notes, you've got patchouli, nutmeg, some lemons, vanilla, benzoin. So it gets warm and ambery as well. But it is an uber, uber warm fragrance. The holiday spice idea comes to mind as well. So this is Tonka Cola from MANCERA. Do let me know if you've tried that. Moving on to a house called by KILIAN or KILIAN. This is a new one from this house. It's Smokin' Hot, this one right here. So KILIAN does boozy fragrances pretty darn good. They do gourmand fragrances pretty darn good. The only complaint I have with this house is their fragrances don't perform as good as I want them to perform, but they do create some delicious fragrances. This is a fragrance created by Matthew Nardin. This is the second fragrance I think he's created for this house. I think the previous one was L'Or Vert, kind of a boozy green fragrance with licorice, but this one to me is more like a holiday kind of a theme, because the kind of smell it is has a kind of a holiday-ish vibe. The fact that it has vanilla and also this apple note, there's a fruitiness in here. So it gives me the idea, well, it's mostly about like a hookah, shisha kind of tobacco, but to me it gives me like a warm, spicy holiday treat kind of a vibe. But it's loads of vanilla with Orcanox, tobacco, oak moss, apples, cinnamon, and of course the shisha tobacco. I think this is a pretty good fragrance. Yeah, I do enjoy this one. It's definitely very warm and spicy with the cinnamon. The cinnamon is pretty strong, and it's the cinnamon and the apples and the vanilla that kind of gives me this like holiday treat, kind of like an apple pie kind of a treat. But of course this does have that tobacco in here as well. So Smokin' Hot from KILIAN. Let me know if you know that fragrance. But moving on to the House of XERJOFF. This is Tony Iommi Monkey Special, this one right here. So this is loads of cinnamon with patchouli and labdanum. So it's very warm, spicy, and ambery. Then of course you got the kind of earthiness from the patchouli as well. This to me, for me, it's more spices rather than gourmand. The patchouli is very earthy and woody in this. I like that about it. And then there's leather here as well. And makes sense because this is co-created, or like Tony Iommi is part of Black Sabbath, so it's kind of a very rock star-esque fragrance here because patchouli, leather all come in, but it gets really, really warm and spicy here. But there's also boozy notes, vanilla, there's ambergris, sandalwood, passion fruit, so there's a bit of fruitiness in here, but for me, what really stands out is the ambery touches, the patchouli, and the cinnamon, and of course the leather comes in as well. This is delicious. It's a great ambery fragrance from the House of XERJOFF. It's Tony Iommi Monkey Special. So there's another fragrance that kind of reminds me of Tony Iommi Monkey Special. It's a Sundowner from the House of Tower Perfumes. They're not identical, but they do have kind of similarities because it's tobacco, cinnamon here. There's an ambery touch, and then the Tony Iommi is also kind of ambery, and it has the cinnamon in there as well. So there's kind of like, not necessarily dupe or anything like that, but there's reminders of one another when I'm wearing it. They're kind of similar styles. In this one, it's an overdose of cinnamon with tobacco. There's cocoa here, there's oranges, vanilla, Cypriol, Tonka, and sandalwood. Definitely in the style of Tower Perfumes. You've got the Tower Oud in here, the Tower Perfumes DNA. That's very, very prominent in a lot of the fragrances. But this is a really great offering from this house after some disappointing releases or not really exciting fragrances. But Sundowner turned out to be really great, and I do enjoy the idea of a warm, spicy tobacco fragrance with an overdose of cinnamon. This is super, super warm and really great fragrance from the House of Tower Perfumes. Let me know if you're a fan of Sundowner, and let me know what you think about it. But yeah, it does remind me a little bit of Tony Iommi, but you know, they're just reminding me of one another. They're not dupes or identical or anything like that. But moving on to the House of L'Artisan, this is Tea for Two. Very warm and spicy with the cinnamon in this one, but it's not only cinnamon, you've got other spices in here as well. Plus you've got tobacco and tea, so it's very cozy, but a bit dirty ashy as well. That tobacco in here does kind of come through and creates for a little bit of a dirty ashiness, but the combination is super, super intoxicating, really, really delicious. Holiday in a bottle for me. It's kind of like a gathering, maybe like a Thanksgiving gathering. You're moved on from the dinner to the dessert part, and you know, people are smoking and they're eating desserts, maybe sipping on tea. There's ginger in here, there's spices in addition to the cinnamon, there's honey, there's star anise, gingerbread, leather, vanilla, bergamot. So great. This is an Olivia Jacobetti creation. I absolutely love it. It's Tea for Two from the House of L'Artisan Parfumeur. So we've got two fragrances in this list from Matthew Nardin. The first one was Smoking Hot for KILIAN, and then we've got Divine Temptation from the House of Reine de Saba. So I did a video of this house overview with Joe as well. If you want to go catch the fragrance, the video of these fragrances, you can. And this is the very first fragrance I got from this house because really fell in love with the warm spiciness. This is boozy once again, just like Smoking Hot, so it seems like Matthew Nardin does do boozy fragrances really well. I like this one a little more than Smoking Hot. This one to me smells a little more expensive and a little more luxurious than Smokin' Hot. Smokin' Hot is a bit more playful to me. I don't know why I get that. But this fragrance is amber with figs. There's cinnamon, lots of cinnamon here. There's rum, there's cloves, gaiac wood, Peru balsam, patchouli, and vanilla. It is a really, really warm, spicy, intoxicating fragrance. But with this one, you do get that fruitiness. But figs in general are not necessarily uber fruity. Like Smokin' Hot has the apples, it comes off more fruity and fun and playful. Figs to me are a bit more mature, and that's why I feel like this fragrance, Divine Temptation, has a bit more, you know, luxurious quality about it. It just reeks class here, smells fantastic, and again, gives me the holiday vibe as well with the notes in this. Really super delicious. And of course, when you look at the bottle, there's definitely a very kind of, you know, Christmas holiday spirit like vibe with the gold and everything. But either way, this is Divine Temptation from Rain de Saba. If you want to find out more about that house, please go catch my video. We talk about that fragrance for sure. And then moving on to the house of Scents of Wood, it's Plum and Cognac. We're talking about cinnamon fragrances here. Warm, spicy, red hot fragrances featuring cinnamon. Remember the red hots I was telling you about, or those big red chewing gum? Man, I used to stuff my mouth with that stuff because I was addicted to that warm spiciness that you get with those, candies and gum and things like that. And I like them in fragrances as well. I like the warm, spicy, red hot kind of spices, especially from the cinnamon. I consume cinnamon and I like them in fragrances, as I said. Plum and Cognac is another boozy fragrance. It's a fruity boozy fragrance with loads of cinnamon. You definitely get to experience the cinnamon in this next to the plums. The plums and cinnamon, really beautiful. It kind of has a bit of a, like a fruit dessert kind of an experience, but then you've got rum here, loads of rum. Booziness for sure. It's plum and cognac, so it's a cognac style booziness here. But then vanilla, Peru balsam, Labdanum, Immortelle, Vetiver, and Osmanthus to give you a little bit more of a stone fruit fruitiness with it as well. This is quite delicious, probably the best from the House of Scents of Wood. If you don't know it, do check it out. I think Plum and Cognac is delicious. I think anyone that's into plums and boozy fragrances should definitely check that one out. And the cinnamon, definitely don't forget that. It's really, really prominent and in your face, so that's why it gives me that kind of red hot, warm, spicy experience. So we're going to a small Italian designer fashion house of Costume National, and we've got Costume National Homme Parfum, this one right here. So great. The original was so good, created by Dominique Ropion, so they updated it with Dominique Ropion to create the Parfum version. And of course, really, really great. For me, this has a lot of cinnamon, and I also get cloves in this one as well. But for me, there's a like this fruity tea vibe in this, like dried fruits and tea together. There's no mention of those notes. Probably it's the ambery experience from the Labdanum that's creating this kind of a fruity tea vibe. But to me, it's just a really great designer take on red hot cinnamon spice. So in addition to the cinnamon, you've got sandalwood, you've got cardamom for a bit of fresh spice, Labdanum for that amber touch, grapefruit for that kind of zingy, spicy citrus touch, and of course patchouli, musk, vetiver, and bergamot as well. If you're into the idea of more of a designer take on warm, spicy, red hot fragrances, definitely check this one out. But I feel like Costume National definitely is more in line with niche offerings rather than like your, mass market designer fragrances. Definitely kind of more like fragrances from the designers that are in their, private blends and things like that. But a great fragrance. If you haven't tried this, it's a great warm, spicy, red hot fragrance. Costume National Homme Parfum. Definitely check that out. Then we're moving to a house called Lark with their fragrance Evasion Digo Havane. I hope that's that I'm saying that correctly. But with this one, it's a very warm, spicy, dry fragrance. There's a lot of cinnamon in this, along with tobacco once again. Remember, I said lots of tobacco and boozy fragrances. This one's not boozy. It's tobacco and cinnamon with honey. And there's also lavender here with dark chocolate. And of course, vanilla and cedar as well. Kind of sort of a distant relative to something like tobacco vanille. It's in that same kind of texture, very dry and dusty kind of experience with the notes here, rather than a syrupy, like compared to Costume National Homme. They wear totally different, whereas Costume National Homme Parfum is very, very syrupy and ambery. Here, it's quite dry, even though you do have some kind of like liquidy, notes in this one. But it's overly spicy with the cinnamon. The tobacco has that kind of ashiness, the smoky, ashy touches. The honey sweetens things up. And then the lavender kind of takes you into a more aromatic herbal direction, where you might think something like the fragrance Naxos from XERJOFF, but not quite there. Anyway, it's a great fragrance from this house. I don't speak a lot about this house, but I think this is one of their best. And I believe this one's created by Julian Rasconnais. So this is Lark Evasion Digo de Havane. Then moving on to a house called Diptyque. Do you guys know Diptyque? This is 34 Boulevard Saint Germain in the EDP concentration. If you like the original in the Eau de Toilette, this version is even better, much better. It's so concentrated and in your face, and they don't mention patchouli in this fragrance. I get a lot of sexy patchouli in this one, mixed with a lot of cinnamon. Like, there's an overdose of cinnamon and cloves in this, like to the max. If you like holiday spices and also like woods and earthy notes and things like that, you gotta check out 34 Boulevard Saint Germain EDP. 34 Boulevard Saint Germain is the original Diptyque store in Paris, but loads of cinnamon and cloves. As I said, there's pink pepper, woods, sandalwood, amber, vanilla, cassis, citruses, iris, violet, rose, and geranium. From what I remember, when this first came out in the 2000s, latter part of the 2000s, or maybe the early 2010s, the fragrance is composed of notes from all their fragrances up to that point. I don't know how true that was. I think it makes sense because I see a lot of the notes that are in here in other fragrances, so could be right. But it's a great fragrance, and I much prefer the EDP. So it's 34 Boulevard Saint Germain EDP. Then we're moving on to the house of Atelier des Ors. This is Rouge Sarré, one of my favorite fragrances, and it does have loads of cinnamon, although this one's not as red hot as some of the other ones, but you definitely experience the cinnamon. For sure, we've got lots of cinnamon with plums, dates, vanilla, patchouli, Peru balsam, gaiac wood, heliotrope, sandalwood. Super delicious dessert, really, really yummy, and almost like taking these fruits, chopping them up into little bites of the fruit, and then you're drizzling it with like something honeyed, syrup or something, and then of course sprinkling it with all of that cinnamon that's in here as well. Really super delicious. Atelier des Ors Rouge Sarré. That is one of my favorite fragrances. I featured that in Scent Club #1 actually. Really was grateful that they wanted to be featured. And then last but not least, going to the house of Tiziano Terenzi is Hail Bop, this one right here. For a fragrance that does kind of sort of remind me of something like Chanel's Le Lion, but with a more cinnamony direction. If you like that idea, this is definitely one for you to try. It's in the end very ambery, and it's got amber and labdanum. There's cinnamon here, vanilla, geranium, sandalwood, musk, lemons, nutmeg. The cinnamon is super king here, really, really prominent, and I think it blends really beautifully with the amber, labdanum, vanilla. These notes are pretty prominent in here. If you're an amber fan, you've definitely got to check this one out. Yes, it does remind you of Le Lion from Chanel. It doesn't have that leather, it doesn't have that animalic qualities that Le Lion does. This one goes gourmand and very, very warm, spicy with the cinnamon, and I like that about it. It's a very, very warm fragrance. This is the kind of fragrance you would wear on a very, very cold day. Warm, spicy, long-lasting because it's an extrait de parfum. Really a great offering. Hail Bop from the house of Tiziano Terenzi, and that's the last fragrance for you guys. Do let me know if you like these kind of red hot, cinnamony, spicy fragrances. Is there another one that you guys like that I haven't spoken about today? Let me know. Put a comment down below so I can find out. But either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. I do have one bonus option here for you guys. It's from the house of Diptyque. Again, I left this here because I have the other Diptyque, and this is an older fragrance. But this one smells like holidays to me. It's called Low, it's actually the very first fragrance Diptyque came out with. Low is all about cinnamon, cloves, geranium, sandalwood, and rose. It's very warm, spicy, and in-your-face cinnamon and cloves. These two notes really work wonderfully together, and guess what? It reminds me of the holidays because, you know, in baking and cooking and things like that, cinnamon and cloves during the holidays are really used a lot. And for me, this totally takes me into that kind of a holiday setting. But either way, if you don't know this one, check it out. It is a more classic fragrance. Definitely the very first fragrance from Diptyque. And it still smells great, especially if you like warm, spicy, red hot, cinnamony fragrances. So that's Low from the house of Diptyque, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.